Hello and welcome back to LendAPI Academy. My name is Kay and this is part 2 of our Product Studio series where we explore how to build and maximize our LendAPI Product Studio. We left off in our last episode where we started out a new product called our Buy Now Pay Later. Today I want to show you in this episode how to utilize more comprehensive data partners and integrations and add those into our Product Studio. So what we're going to do is we're going to leverage our Product Studios to call our third-party data providers such as a credit bureau or a Plaid widget. In here, once you navigate to your product of choice, on the page that you want to call the provider, this is where you can leverage your initial providers here and select a third-party data connection of your choice. Of course, before any of the third-party connections are available, the first thing a user has to do is make sure that the integration endpoint is actually turned on. To turn on integrations, you can simply navigate over to integrations, click on the integration settings of your choice and make sure that all of the access is available. In this case, we are going to be leveraging TransUnion soft pulls first, and we're going to be checking to make sure all of the certificates and credentials and access is available. So it looks like our TransUnion soft is turned on. Now what we want to do is go back to our product of choice, and we are going to leverage the TransUnion soft. When you click on the initial provider, the system will call this provider upon clicking the next step or continue button here. So the page properties here will control the overall page setup that you've initiated in your Product Studio. So in this case, what we're telling the platform to do is after the user enters all of the information here, they're going to click the next step button, and we're going to call the TransUnion soft provider. Now, of course, in order for us to call TransUnion successfully, there are some data points we have to leverage in order for TransUnion to actually pull back the appropriate data. Those data points for the credit bureau for this particular endpoint are first and last name, social security number, date of birth, and address. There's a specific trick to making sure that this is readily available for LendAPI and to be able to successfully utilize TransUnion. And that is for these specific data polls, we have what we call our LendAPI system input variables. This is different than user input variables. These are fields that the user can input, but they are anchored to the LendAPI platform for you to be able to utilize for third-party or API connections. And to verify which are actually LendAPI system variables, you can check inside either our Model Studio or inside our Product Studio, and you'll see there are specific system variables and a little marker next to them. So in this case, we will need for the user to be able to call first and last name, address, city, state, zip code, date of birth, and of course, SSN. To know that these specific ones are passed back, we'll have to check to make sure this is a system variable. So I know from experience that first underscore name is in fact a system variable, but for those of you who are new to the build, all you have to do is make sure that when you select the first name to be leveraged through your TransUnion or any third-party integrations, you choose the first name that actually has that logo next to it. And now I know all of these other fields are also tied to this particular instance. So with that, I can safely say that I have all of the required products and fields to be able to successfully call a TransUnion vendor and pull back the soft credit score. So I'm going to keep it to just these mandatory fields here. And I'm going to keep everything else as optional. So I'm going to keep all these fields for the user, and then upon the next step, utilize all the input fields and call the TransUnion information. Now that I've updated this page, I'm going to save. And I'm going to navigate to the next page where I want to verify the user's mobile device or communication details. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in another page called communication details. And on this page, I'm going to ask the users for their email and for their mobile number. For their email, what I'm going to leverage is for communication emails that I want to send to them later throughout the application process. And I'm going to leverage the LendAPI system variable for email. For this particular instance, you don't necessarily have to leverage this. You can set up your own email and then go to the email templates to make sure it's set to the right variable. But since I already have this variable and I'm not using it, I'm going to leverage this. And I'm going to make this required. The second of which is going to be a mobile number. For the mobile number, I'm going to leverage the LendAPI mobile OTP widget to try to dissuade any sort of device fraud or bots that want to come into my system. So in order to do this, I'm going to have to leverage the mobile number variable that is actually tied and anchored to the LendAPI platform. And that is why I chose the mobile input that has the logo next to it. Now that I've had these two systems ready to go, I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to add in another page. And this is going to be my OTP page. This is where I'm going to leverage the out-of-the-box LendAPI mobile OTP widget. This widget is an SMS-based verification. It will send a 6-digit code to the mobile number and allow the users to proceed forward only if they enter the code successfully. Of course, we do this to help persuade any sort of fraud or instances. The only way to make this work is to make sure that the mobile input number is actually present before the OTP widget. So the OTP widget will search for this mobile field and make sure the right number is available to ping back. So now that I have the widget, I can make sure that this page is available before the user navigates to the widget itself. Otherwise, the widget will not function correctly. And then the final widget I want to showcase in this video is our third-party widgets. So we've talked about the initial providers to call for back-end data pools such as TransUnion, Middesk, Equifax. For those that require an actual user engagement, such as Plaid for open banking, to do that, we do have out-of-the-box widgets that we've integrated with our third-party data providers, such as Plaid Auth or even Google Place. To initialize this, the first thing you have to do is always come into, again, your integration partner side to make sure that the endpoints and the data pools are turned on. Now that I want the users to be able to navigate through with Plaid Auth, I can simply make sure that the Plaid Auth client IDs and client secrets are on, I also have to make sure that the Plaid API endpoint that I want to point to is available. So now that I have my Plaid auth turned on, I can actually go back and make sure that the page I want the users to log into has the Plaid widget. So now when they navigate to this page, the Plaid widget is available. Of course, when the actual user experience appears, the Plaid widget with the functionality will be available for the user. So the actual Plaid widget will pop up. We can do the same for any of our third-party widget providers, such as Plaid IDV, CRA, Chirp, as well as Conductive. Any of these particular instances will allow for the user to actually interact with the third-party widget. So with that, I can actually, if I wanted to, leverage the first page, and instead of asking the users to input their address, city, state, or zip, I can actually utilize the Google Place widget in its place to autofill this address. So all I have to do now is make sure that the Google Place API is turned on, and now I can actually utilize this widget. Of course, not everyone has to utilize Google Place. If you do not choose to, you can always use our user input fields here. So with that, I will end this video here. And as always, please subscribe and follow us for more content on the LendAPI Academy. Thank you.